Today I'm going to show how to install closed cell foam sound deadening material in the rear deck of a 2022 or newer Hyundai Elantra N. I will also show how to make a custom speaker adapter so you can replace the factory 8-inch Bose subwoofer with an aftermarket 8-inch subwoofer. Replacing the factory subwoofer may be a good option for those that want more bass but not add a lot of weight to their car. The factory subwoofer weighs 4 pounds, whereas a kicker 8-inch subwoofer weighs 7 pounds 6 ounces. In contrast, the 12-inch subwoofer I currently have in my car weighs 57 pounds. This is a significant amount of weight to add over the factory subwoofer, not to mention all the other equipment that I have in the car. I have links to all the products and tools used in this video in the description below. To complete this install, you'll need to gain access to the car's rear deck. Begin by removing the lower rear seat cushion. The cushion is held into place by two 12mm bolts located between the back of the cushion and rear seat backing. Pull the cushion away from the back seat to locate each bolt. After both bolts have been removed, pop up the front of the cushion to release the two clips holding the front of the cushion in place. Then remove the cushion from the car. Next, you'll need to remove the plastic trim located behind the rear seat. The trim is held into place by two 10mm bolts, one on each side of the trim, and 7 plastic clips. The plastic clips will need to be removed by a plastic trim tool. After the clips have been removed, pull the trim towards you and remove it from the car. As you can see, I already have sound deadening material installed on the back side of the plastic panels and rear deck. That material was installed to prevent the metal from vibrating. The additional cell foam is being installed to prevent the plastic from touching the metal and creating additional rattles or noise. Move to the large plastic side panels located on each side of the rear deck and back glass. These panels are held in tightly and their plastic clips have a tendency to break, so be careful as you pop the clips. Before you can pop each panel, you will need to remove part of the door seal. You can simply pull the rubber door seal away from the car. After the seal has been partially removed, use your plastic trim tool to pop the clips holding the panel in place. The bottom of the panel is seated in the panel below it, so you will need to pull the panel up and out of the slot that it is seated into before you can remove it completely. As you can see, I've had the panel out before and broke one of the clips. Instead of buying a new panel, I used tape to reattach the clip. I originally tried super glue, but it did not work well with the panel. With the top panels removed, you need to remove the lower panels. Before you can remove them, you must remove the smaller panel located under the rear seat. This small panel is held into place with one screw. Unscrew the screw and lift the panel from the car. Using your plastic trim tool, pop the clips holding the lower panel in place and remove it from the car. Repeat these steps for the other side. Before you move on to the next step of removing the rear deck, you will need to unplug the third brake light wiring harness. There is a hole cut in the rear deck that allows easy access to the wire harness. Once the wire harness has been unplugged, you can pop up the rear deck panel and then pull it off towards you. Since the seat belts run through this panel, you will have to work around it unless you want to remove the seat belts, which I did not want to do. Normally, I don't have the factory sub installed, but for this video, I reinstalled the sub to show how to remove it. To remove the sub, you must remove the 4 10mm nuts holding it in place. Then, unplug the wire harness from the sub and remove it from the car. The Bose subwoofer is 8 inches around and has a 1 ohm rating. It also takes 80 watts of power. To make a speaker adapter for the new 8-inch subwoofer, I used the factory subwoofer to make a template. Using a thin sheet of hardboard, I set the subwoofer on the hardboard upside down and traced the subwoofer. You will also want to mark each of the 4 mounting holes onto the template. For this install, I chose to use a Kicker Comp R 8-inch subwoofer. I laid the Kicker sub upside down on the template so that I could make sure it would fit inside the adapter. The subwoofer fit perfectly, so I moved on to cutting out the template. I used a jigsaw to cut the template. I took my time to get the cleanest cut possible. The template has an odd shape, but it came out exactly how I wanted it to. Next, I measured the template to find the center. Knowing the center point allowed me to cut the hole for the subwoofer to drop it into. If your subwoofer comes with a cutout template, you can use that instead. Just lay the cutout on the template and trace the hole. When you have the hole drawn, you can then cut the hole out. After you cut out the hole, test fit the template over the subwoofer. Then install the template and sub into the rear deck of the car to make sure everything fits properly. If everything fits properly, you can use your template to cut a piece of wood or plastic, whichever you'd like to use to make the final adapter out of. I chose to use a 3/4 inch piece of wood I had laying around. If this had been a permanent installation, I probably would have used a plastic sheet. Since the template has everything laid out for you, all you need to do is trace the template and cut the adapter. I put the mounting screw holes on the template and transferred them to the final adapter. You don't really need to do this until the final adapter is finished. If you're making your adapter out of wood, you'll need to sand the edges after you finish cutting. To mount the subwoofer to the new adapter, use 2 small clamps to hold the adapter to the sub and then screw the sub to the adapter. You could also do this with the adapter installed in the rear deck. Make sure that you use the appropriate screws based on the thickness of the material that you're using. If you're using plastic or acrylic, you could install screw adapters into the mount. This way you're not using screws directly into the material. Now that the mount is completed, I wired the subwoofer to go to the aftermarket amplifier. If you want to hook up the subwoofer to the factory Bose amp, you'll need to tap into the factory wire harness. The brown wire is the positive, and the white wire is the negative. Before I installed the subwoofer into the car, I installed the closed-cell foam sound deadening material. I chose to do this because even with the sound deadening material I already had installed, I was still getting rattles from the plastic panels vibrating against the rear deck. I chose to go with Silas 4mm closed-cell foam sound deadening material. I cut the material into sections and covered the entire rear deck. The closed-cell foam can be installed directly on top of other sound deadening material. The product is easy to cut and install, but it is very sticky, so once it's laid down it cannot be removed easily. I had to cut holes for the third brake light wire harness and the rear deck panel's mounting clips. After the closed-cell foam was installed, I installed the subwoofer. I found the mounting holes were not large enough to accommodate the factory nuts. I had to drill the holes much larger to get the nuts to fit, but this posed another problem. The socket wouldn't fit to screw the nuts to the mounting bolts. To get everything to fit properly, you need to reduce the height of the mounting points like the factory subwoofer. Once reduced, the subwoofer's mounting nuts can be tightened properly. To reduce the height of the mounting points, I used a Dremel and 2 sanding bits. I had to use 2 sanding bits because they will not last very long against this thick of wood. I measured 1/4 inch at the bottom of the adapter so that I could remove 1/2 inch of material. With the subwoofer and sound deadening installed, you can reinstall the rear deck panel, side panels, and rear seat in the reverse order they were removed. On to my sound deadening impressions. I found the extra closed-cell foam sound deadening did help with reducing the rattle from the rear deck. It's hard to remove every rattle when using a large subwoofer or woofers in the trunk of your car, but the sound deadening combination worked very well. For the small amount of additional cost above the regular sound deadening I already had installed, it was well worth the money. Finally, my subwoofer impressions. I found installing the 8-inch subwoofer was a definite upgrade over the factory sub. It had a deeper tone, which was appreciated. If you run the subwoofer off the factory amp, the upgrade may not be as noticeable. With an aftermarket amp, the upgrade was noticeable for sure, not only in deeper tone, but in volume as well. Plus, an aftermarket amp gives you the ability to control the subwoofer's volume independently from the factory radio's volume. I didn't end up keeping the 8-inch sub in my car because I wanted even more bass than an 8-inch can provide. An 8-inch sub mounted in a free air configuration is no match for a larger 12-inch sub in a large enclosure. I would say if you're wanting more bass in your car and wanting to keep things simple without adding much weight, upgrading the factory sub with a small amp is a worthwhile upgrade to the audio system. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content.